Mr. Dayal, India has taken action, India has retaliated. But is this not the responsibility of the world to ensure that nations like Pakistan that provide a safe haven to terrorists, that ensure funding to these terror organizations happens, that money flows in, and such nations should be acted against? Is this not the responsibility of the world and organizations like the IMF?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. Of course, it is the responsibility of all countries of the world to combat terror. And since terror emanates so often from Pakistan and directs itself against various countries, terror based in Pakistan and the outfits which carry terrorist activities have to be taken action against. However, the world remains oblivious. And there are various reasons for that. For instance, the United States. The United States has for long thought that Pakistan's terrorist activities are directed against India. And India may therefore feel the need for high quality weapons and would perhaps buy some of these from the United States. India is the world's biggest importer of weapons, and the United States is the world's biggest exporter. The United States sees India as a very big market. And if Pakistan creates problems for India, so what? That is their attitude. Now, terror from Pakistan has hurt the United States itself. No one can forget that Osama bin Laden was given accommodation for over 5 years in Abbottabad, less than a mile away from the military academy. Nobody can forget the direct connection between Pakistan-based terrorists and the London tube attack. There are so many other instances, but nonetheless, there is no doubt that the world has largely ignored Pakistan's terror connection. Now, India has been steadfast in pointing out that terror from Pakistan hurts us and it hurts other countries. And that is why at the recent IMF meeting, where Pakistan's request for the loan was considered, we pointed out that all the money that IMF has been giving to Pakistan is misused.
Absolutely.
Pakistan has received 25 loans from the IMF, and all these are considerable. Where is the money gone? Why is the country in such shambles? What is the state of the Pakistani economy? Is the IMF not aware of that? Where does this money go? Everybody knows that it goes to finance terror.
Absolutely.
Now, Pakistan is not a democracy. There is an elected government, but that's just a sham. Pakistan is run by the deep state, and the deep state consists of the army and the ISI. They have a vested interest in funding the terror outfits because they use them against India. So this money, which is intended for the development of Pakistan and which the IMF so generously gives, goes towards funding of terror. And that is the unfortunate reality.
Absolutely.
We pointed it out.
Anybody who believes that this terror emanating from Pakistan is only hurting India and no one else is living in fool's paradise, Professor Nalapat, what does not have to be a nuclear scientist to put things together to understand how Pakistan, a broke nation with its economy in shambles, gets fresh money, new money from IMF, and then makes these big announcements, 1 crore to be given to those killed. And look at how this is going to end up benefiting Masood Azhar.
Well, Swati, I'd like to point out that just before 9/11 happened, during the George W. Bush regime, a delegation of Taliban was invited to Washington to meet with the presidential team, and I'm sure they had discussions with the presidential team. I have no idea what those discussions were, but shortly thereafter, to the shock of the Americans, you had that horrible incident of 9/11. You're talking about Osama bin Laden. This is Osama bin Laden's signature achievement. So the fact is, in my prediction, and I'm sorry to say, I may be belittled at first, but usually it's proved right, is that this is going to be, Pakistan is going to be another Afghanistan. The military in Pakistan is going to be what Taliban was during that period, not the new Taliban, but the old Taliban, which was currently brought to power by Bill Clinton in 1996 in Afghanistan and repaid America in 2001 with that strike. I mean, I was very close to the World Trade Center with my wife in the Lexington Hotel when that happened, and we can see the shock of that. The point is very simple. It's only a matter of time before a terror module from Pakistan, or possibly in operation in the U.S. also. They have got modules active in the U.S. among certain sections of the U.S. population, and these modules will spring into action and have an unpleasant surprise ready for the Americans. So I want to say the American policy is totally short-sighted. American policy and Donald Trump is going to go the way of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton facilitated the Taliban. Bill Clinton was totally on the side of Pakistan on Kashmir. I mean, there are reasons why Trump is going the way of Bill Clinton, and none of those reasons are good where U.S. security is concerned. So, Swati, let me tell you that what Trump is doing is basically what Clinton did. Store up trouble, which is going to strike the U.S. homeland someday, sooner or later, possibly much sooner than anyone thinks, Swati.
Absolutely. I want to bring in Lieutenant General Prasad as well. Lieutenant General Prasad, West is very clever in that sense, isn't it? When it comes to India, Pakistan or this region, they act as if this is our problem, this is none of their business. But when America is affected, impacted, and we saw how they took down Osama bin Laden, America does not think twice when it has to protect its citizens, when it has to safeguard its sovereignty and national integrity. But when it comes to this part of the world, they feel no remorse or hesitation in hyphenating India and Pakistan.
You're absolutely correct. And the two previous speakers, whatever they've said, I completely endorse. In fact, I take out some points from them. Firstly, I want to make a point to say that this is the right time for India to advertise as much as possible with evidence to say where this money is actually going in Pakistan. 14 crores going, as you say, must be advertised to the world and shown, if possible, as to how this is being spent by terrorists and rebuilding of terrorist camps and what the Prime Minister calls terrorist universities, both at Bhagalpur as well as Mudir Ke. That's one part we have to keep telling the world. The very interesting thing that Ambassador Dayal said was that the Americans want this to continue so that India continues to import equipment from outside and the Americans and the other big armed manufacturing people supply weapons to India, so the trade of weapons continues in their favor. The answer to this is that very soon, and I think we are already on that path, to be indigenously satisfied, indigenously completely, as we call Atmanirbhar. Bulk of the equipment, military equipment, which we need in the current situation, is now already started manufacturing in India. The day we are reasonably self-sufficient, the day we make our own missiles, our own equipments like the radars and all the early warning elements and the anti-aircraft guns, etc., the sooner it will be stopping. People think that if these two countries can continue to be put at war, like the way they have done at the moment, they will continue to support. And I completely see the point that Ambassador was making, that the one way, and the answer is the second important point, which I do hope sincerely that the world powers will understand, that India is not only fighting terrorism for itself, India is fighting terrorism on behalf of the entire world.
Absolutely.
If you notice, most incidents of terrorism that has taken place in the past decade or 2 decades have all had background to Pakistan. And that's the only country which has universities which train terrorists. That is the only army in the world. In no other conventional army has an armed corps. You see, regular armies have an armored corps, an infantry and an air artillery, etc. Pakistan has got a terrorist army. The most potent element of Pakistan army is Jaish-e-Mohammed, something like equivalent to our artillery, and Lashkar-e-Toiba equivalent to our armored corps. So these are the principal weapons that the Pakistan military has got, which is not
And that's
ready
why,
to fight
sir,
a
you had the
conventional war. It
Pakistani
doesn't think
officials,
for a
military
conventional
officials,
war.
take part in the funeral processions of these terrorists and saluting them, paying them tributes.